I'm the first to use my own computer, so thanks. Fine. Thank you very much, Ruth. Oh, we seem to have lost it. What happened there? Okay, we'll start again. Thank you very much, Ruth. Thank you to Ben and Barbara Kisira and the CyArk team for the invitation to speak to you. As a museum person, my research concentrates on the amalgamation of cultural heritage and new media practices, in particular interactive cinema, augmented reality, and embodied narrative. Increasingly, as technologies are coupled to cultural and natural heritage, we see an unprecedented emergence of theoretical and practical challenges. My thesis today is in part to explore how the originality of an artwork is augmented by the quality and abundance of its digital copies. The contemporary philosopher Bruno Latour has recently argued for the migration of aura, and I would suggest that this is more accurately described as a proliferation of aura, the process by which a good quality digital facsimile both propagates and adds layers of significance and meaning to the original, providing the object with a biography. The copy is both copious and abundant. This is opposed to the concept that remains prevalent in the cultural heritage sector, that is, the loss of aura as an object undergoes its reproduction, its digitization and resultant copy, but a weak surrogate competing with or supplanting the real. It's considered at best a tool or an educational aid. And what I'll trace through a series of digital artworks is how cultural heritage can be transformed through strategies not only of digitization, but interaction and augmentation. The works I will describe are at the center of a revolution in the way that museums and heritage managers are able to conceive the digital in relation to objects and places in their care. The setting for the research that I do as research director is actually at the Applied Laboratory for Interactive Visualization and Embodiment, ALIVE, another great acronym, located at the Hong Kong Science Park in Hong Kong under the auspices of City University. So we're undertaking research and experimentation in conceptual, technological, and operational paradigms to do with the preservation of cultural heritage, interpretation, and embodied museography. This work that we're doing builds on the creative innovations at the ZKM Center for Art and Media in Karlsruhe in Germany, at the iCinema Research Center in Sydney, and at Museum Victoria in Melbourne, where I also hold a position. We've got nine large-scale immersive systems. Many of them are 3D, and they offer strategies for multi-sensory engagement and give us powerful ways in which to reformulate narrative in a digital context. They emphasize human-to-human as well as human-to-machine interaction. When we talk about research and presentation of heritage sites, we're not really concerned about the memetics of representation. Rather, we're drawing on the principles such as phenomenology and embodiment from post-processual archaeology. Archaeologist Christopher Tilley advances a phenomenological understanding of the experience of landscape. His arguments emphasize approaches to archaeological assemblages that go beyond their material manifestation. The immersive and interactive display systems that we develop help support this mode of inquiry. The first work that I'll discuss is a work we produced last year, Pure Land Inside the Magao Grottos at Dongguan. Pure Land is a collaboration between ALIVE and the Dongguan Academy based at the World Heritage Site in the Gobi Desert in northwestern China. It's probably familiar to many of you. It's one of the important nodes along the Silk Road. It's known as the Cave Temple of 1,000 Buddhas, 45,000 square meters of fresco paintings, 2,000 stucco statues, and 492 caves. Inside each cave is an art treasury abounding with paradisical frescoes and hand-molded clay sculptures of savior gods and saints, and they are in size and historical breadth like nothing else in the Chinese Buddhist world. The major conservation strategy was to do with the stabilization of the sand dune above the site. That's now been successful. And the number one impact on the site is massively increasing visitation, which rises humidity inside the cave, causes the frescoes to fall off the walls. Of the 492 caves, they have 10 open to the public, selected out of 30, and they're on rotation. It's quite likely that all these caves will have to close in the future, much like Lascaux in France, the Altamira caves in Spain. And so providing new modes of access, both on-site and around the world, has been a driving factor in Pure Land. It combines the laser scanning data of Cave 220 and its resultant optimized model with the ultra-high-resolution photography that goes on at that site. Dongguan has 50 full-time photographers. It takes 3 months to image a single cave. They use camera array photography and they stitch it together. So we've integrated these data sets into our 360 3D system. It's 10 meters across, 4.5 meters high. It's a prototype, so it's really looking at a range of visualization strategies that we can then extend through the implementation across multiple caves. We're concentrating our efforts on the Eastern Pure Land in this sutra. This is actually a laser scan of the escarpment at Dongguan, and you can see the entrances to the caves in this image. The work begins with an escarpment image browser, which is to do with key iconography in each cave. And then we really simulate what it's like to be there now, where if you visit the cave, you're with a guide. The guide has an LED torch, and the scene is revealed for you. So we plunge people back into a real-world experience. But then, of course, because it's digital, we can do anything we like, and we open up the world. We created a magnifying glass for the mural paintings. Because the iconography is so dense, you can put an expert in this cave and they're simply using the magnifying glass, and it's about a 2.5-hour experience when they describe all the features inside. We, together with the Dongguan Academy, using the pigment studies, did a whole series of recoloring of some of the mural paintings. These are 2D layer cutouts, so they come off the wall. These are the 7 medicine Buddhas. In the front of each Buddha, there's an incense burner. These were all modeled in 3D and reinserted into the scene. They're very obscure for a lay person to interpret. So adding these kind of didactic tools have been very successful. The north wall is also famous for the 32 musicians, so we modeled all of the instruments. I won't go through them all. And a final strategy was to invite Beijing Academy dancers. We filmed them in our blue screen studio using cameras that James Cameron uses. We then, this is the original footage, and then they were reinserted into the scene. Recolored and reinserted into the scene. So the whole wall is filled with interactive elements. The public can drive it, or we run docent-led tours. It launched in our Gallery 360 in a new Daniel Libeskind building in Hong Kong. The work then has been installed several times, including at the Smithsonian. And even though it was a very modest prototype, it was built with $50,000 US dollars, it has had a very significant impact. Julian Raby described it as the exhibition experience of the future. And in the press, it was reported by Philip Kennicott in a very interesting article, and he said, "At last we have a virtual reality system worthy of inclusion in a museum devoted to the real stuff of art." So suddenly we see a museum which is traditionally very focused on objects and traditionally not interested in the digital, embracing a digital object of some significance and attributing it with a fair degree of aura. This project is expanding to 5 caves currently, and we are also doing an immersive teaching experiment where we're connecting the AV system at UNSW in Sydney with the AV system in Hong Kong so we can do real-time teaching about Dongguan caves. We took the same basic data set, which is the wireframe, and we printed it on the walls here at exactly 1-to-1 scale with the real cave. This was originally done for the Hong Kong Art Fair, and it uses the laser scanning material, and people are able to navigate both the real world and the virtual model at 1-to-1 scale, peering through this, tablet. You can see the ceiling, and when you hold it up to the wall, it is 1-to-1 scale. You can see here, most people will stroke the wall because they somehow feel that the wall is giving them the material.
Even come closer. Go closer. You can see the details.
So she is now stroking the wall. And this video is really important. So it's really at the core of the museum experience, which is socialization. And as you can see here, all these ladies coalescing around a single screen. And I'm often asked to make applications for mobile devices where everyone has their own screen. And this is precisely why I wouldn't do that, because I believe that the core of the social experience is a performance, and that the relationship between those ladies, this lady and the cave, are very, very significant, and we have a unique opportunity in a situated setting to do this kind of thing. So that's what the ladies do, and this is what the men do. So they spend their whole time working out how the thing works. The girlfriend is standing by, somewhat unimpressed. He's figured out that the little silver balls are integral to the tracking system. So it's done using 12 infrared cameras, 14 infrared cameras. This also has not a didactic word in it. We do have a new version where you shake the iPad and you turn on text documentation across all the walls, so every element is described. But in this situation in Shanghai, it was getting 9,000 people a day. Anybody can use it. It is a democratic interface. Small children, middle-aged ladies, grandmother and grandchild. Grandmother abandons grandchild and rushes off with the screen. I thought I'd also look at what we're doing with objects. This is work we did for the Hong Kong Maritime Museum this year. It's one of their iconic objects, 18-meter-long scroll painting, The Pacifying of the South China Sea Pirates. It's another 360 installation in their gallery. And it involves 55 animations that play out over 14 minutes, and the audience have rotated once in 360 degrees. So the animation vignettes are like this, very 2D style of animation, like the painting. It's quite gory and bloody, most of it. There are 20 scenes, and So the scene titles are actually in the painting, so we bring those out. We use interactive mist, which are sea vapors, sea mist, and a series of vignettes play out over the 360 screen. I think it was Peter Greenaway that said that cinema should be reinvented as a scroll painting. To do a work like that, we have to scan the scroll, and we also have another great lab called LuxLab to go with iGLAM, and this is in ultra-high resolution optical scanning, multispectral, hyperspectral, infrared, whatever you like. It's done in collaboration with Kyoto University, and we've now established it at City University, and it allowed us to scan this at 1,200 dpi. It could have been 5,000 dpi. What's very important to me is color fidelity, and it's this kind of scanning, as opposed to photography, that allows you complete control over the color value. I wanted also to address something that Brian Matthews said about the access to cultural collections. So we have a whole series of projects dealing with the revisualization of database material, essentially. This is a prototype. You're the first person to see it. Or first people to see it. It's a data browser built for my museum in Melbourne. It's 75,000 objects. They own a 360 3D system. You're able to traverse both natural history, social history, Aboriginal material, using this kind of data browser. It's a public data browser. These things are important because the museum has 16 million objects, and only a fraction of those are on show. The British Museum has 0.4% of its collection on show. So these are modalities of situated access, and also, I would say, serendipitous browsing, which you can bring the whole collection of the museum visible to audiences. This will be finished in about a few months, and will go on public display. We've also done 4 works at the World Heritage Site of Hampi, the Kingdom of Vijayanagara in Karnataka in India. Hampi is both simultaneously a monumental World Heritage precinct and a vibrant center of contemporary pilgrimage where history, the natural environment, and mythology are closely interwoven. This is Hampi Bazaar during the marriage of Pampa and Virupaksha, an incarnation of Shiva. A very rich, intangible cultural heritage. It's also, in mythological interpretation, it's Kishkinda, the home of the monkeys. This is where Hanuman was born, so a very significant cultural site. The work itself was originally commissioned in 2006 for France-India year, and it's in high-resolution stereographic panoramic imaging and bosonics. It launched at the Opera House in Lille and then toured around the world to several museums. It's a motorized platform, and you're able to rotate your image in 360 degrees. Video documentation is quite difficult because it's really dark in there, but there are controls on the platform that allow you basically to drive. It's passive stereo. And you have a symbolic map on the platform that allows you to understand where you're navigating to. We worked together with an Indian animation company, trained them in stereographics. It was the first 3D animation ever done in India. And they inserted vignettes into some of these panoramic cylinders. You can also release text into the world that comes from chapter 13 and 37 of the Ramayana. You speak into a microphone and you release this into the world. Here it's in Sanskrit. The most current version is in Canada. And these vignette animations were inserted into the scene. Many of the locations you cannot see if you are actually at Hampi. This is on top of one of the mandipuras at Virupaksha Temple. We worked together with Dr. L. Subramaniam, who's a Carnatic violin superstar, who provided the music for the animations. It uses quite a rare camera. There's only 4 of these in the world. It's wonderfully analog. It's left and right eye film camera writing to 220 film, which is then drum scanned for projection to create these virtual worlds. We use ambisonic sound recording at the same time that the photograph is taken, so you get a very clear mapping of the 3D architecture of sound with the image itself. And these are played back spatially, and of course, motion capture for animation. This work is now installed in a new museum adjacent to the site. It includes dance pavilions, residency studios, artist studios, and a new museum which I built inside. It includes Place Hampi, but it's a whole meditation on the archaeological imaginary and drawing together the archives of the people that have worked there. This is an interactive light table of the archaeologists George Michel and John Fritz. Large satellite images, which are only just recently available, panoramic interviews with these archaeologists, and so on. It's a full precinct there right next to the site. Quite unusual for India. I've just also published a book on this, so if you're interested, it's quite glorious. It's got double fold-out gatefold panoramas in it, 18 of them, and it does a full theoretical discussion of these works and the placement in India. So just to draw the circle closed, we'll return to the proliferation of aura and the changing ways in which we as custodians of the real are beginning to invest in the digital. And I use this example. It's not my work, it's a work of 2 colleagues, Paul Burke and Peter Morse, and it's a new museum in the Museum of Old and New Art in Tasmania. It's a room filled with water, and there's a sarcophagi placed on the platform. You walk over the stones onto the platform, and you can see the real object on the left-hand side, and its digital equivalent is on the right-hand side. So, of course, the digital, even though it's treated in exactly this, it's given the same stage as the real, it has many, many other qualities. And I think that the staging is the thing that reinforces the point. The digital gives us new ways to see. Thank you.